Hello, my name is Ashley Dedmon, and I am a BRCA2 Previvor. I am also a member of the Vassar Center's Young Leadership Council. Today, we have Armenta Washington, and we will be having a conversation around clinical trials. Armenta?
Hi, my name is Armenta Washington. I am a research coordinator senior at the Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania, Abramson Cancer Center, and I come from the Office of Diversity and Outreach.
Thank you, Arminta. I'm going to dive right in. You have so much experience and expertise in clinical trials is a conversation that is important to so many, especially in the African American community. So diving right in, can you tell us what clinical trials are for cancer and why they are important?
Cancer research helps scientists to identify causes and develop ways to find, prevent, and treat cancer. Research helps to reduce the cancer burden, as well as clinical trials may be one of the options available upon diagnosis, which is not a last resort.
Thank you for that information. And it takes me to my next question. Underrepresentation in the Black community in clinical trials is a great concern for many cancer centers and the patients they serve. What are some of the reasons why there are fewer Black men and women participating in clinical trials?
So, unfortunately, African Americans may be underrepresented in clinical trials research, but they're overrepresented in the rates of cancer, the portion of those who have certain cancers, and cancer death rates. So, age, gender, ethnicity, disabilities, socioeconomics, and where a person lives are factors that are contributing to cancer burden, as well as, the African American community has a healthy distrust of research. So, there are families who know someone who may have been a victim of the abuses that have occurred. And, present in the minds of Black Philadelphians are abuses that have occurred more recently than Tuskegee or Henrietta Lacks. So those are the things that we have to consider.
Absolutely. Medical mistrust plays a huge role. And as you stated, a few of those historical cases that definitely impacts us even today. And so
Yes.
that does definitely play a part, that medical mistrust. And that kind of really helps me to navigate to my next question. And having a low participation um, uh, rate in clinical trials, what is the impact of that? What is the impact of not having or having fewer African Americans in or participate in clinical trials?
So research tells us that only 4% of adult patients who ever participate in clinical trials um, take that opportunity. And in our community, in the African American community, that percentage is even lower, um, which has not changed in some years. And as mentioned earlier, women, elders, and people of color are still underrepresented in clinical trials. Um, Cancer health disparities um, let us know that in certain populations, they have not benefited from the advances that have been made in research. And many people who could absolutely benefit from trials are not aware of them. And, through my work in cancer health disparities, I've encountered African American cancer survivors who were not aware of cancer clinical trials at all.
And you bring up a good point. I really believe that that representation of Blacks, African Americans in clinical trials are important because those clinical trials go on to form the guidelines.
Right.
And if we are not represented in the clinical trials and guidelines are made, then they don't reflect us. They don't reflect the Black population, the African American population. And you really hit on health disparities. When you have triple negative breast cancer and prostate cancer, it's really important those really specific types or those aggressive types of cancer.
Mhm.
It's really important to have participation in those clinical trials. Armenta, tell us about the work that you're doing at the Penn Medicine's ACC.
So at the Abramson Cancer Center, I come from, again, from the Office of Diversity and Community Outreach, which supports ACC by promoting diversity and inclusion. And as a part of the center's goals to decrease the cancer burden, this is done through community education, outreach, and engagement. And one of the other goals is to increase the diversity of patients who are participating in ACC clinical trials. I'm currently developing the clinical trial ambassador training, and the goal of this training is to train trusted African American cancer survivors who can return to their respective communities to raise people's awareness about cancer research to include clinical trials as well as biospecimen research.
Wow, Arminta, that is very valuable work, especially as we continue to do work in clinical trials and to help address the disparities in cancer. And so that takes me to my last question. What do you wish more people knew about clinical trials? What is one step a patient or their family can take today to help themselves and help their community improve participation in clinical trials?
So one of the things that I do in my education is I leave people with this information as best you can. Know your family's medical history and make it an activity like at a family reunion or all of these gatherings that we're having virtually is to bring that up and know that information. To also understand that cancer is not just one disease, so there's no magic bullet. And many of the over the counter medications that we have today were once part of a clinical trial. And people don't understand that there's several types of clinical trials. There's treatment trials, like those are for people who have certain diseases, testing new or existing treatments. There's prevention trials, studies involving healthy people to do something or to take something like a supplement. There's screening trials that test new ways to find a disease. And for women, many of us have had the 3D mammogram. Quality of life or supportive or palliative care trials look at the ways to improve side effects, cope with pain or other health problems that come along with treatment. And then there's natural history studies that follow people with cancer who may be at risk for cancer over a period of time. So someone like yourself, you share that you have a family history that goes back several generations. And so your family has probably taken part in a natural history study.
Absolutely, my mom actually was during her treatment and her battle with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer was enrolled into a clinical trial, and at that time, being introduced to this disease, our family had to really educate ourselves on the clinical trial that she was enrolling for, and making sure that she was educated and aware and that we all felt comfortable. And it really took that collaboration with her doctor and her medical team, that bi-directional conversation to really help us to make an informed decision. And I even know in my BRCA2 journey, when discussing risk management options with my high risk oncologist, hormone therapy was one of the many options that was provided to me. And it was that same dialogue of being able to educate myself on those options at the time, because to your point, the different options that we have nowadays they were once at a clinical trial stage. And so thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Arminta, one last question. Do you have any resources for students that attend our historically Black colleges and universities that want to go on to become scientists and work in clinical trial research?
Absolutely. So, as you know, the University of Pennsylvania's Cancer Center is a comprehensive cancer center, and it's one of over 50 comprehensive cancer centers that exist throughout the United States. And so that designation is made possible for the through the National Cancer Institute, who has a center to reduce cancer health disparities. And through that center, they fund different positions such as mine in those comprehensive cancer centers to work with not just late stage researchers, but people who are entering their careers. And so through the Center to Reduce Cancer Health Disparities, they have a website which individuals can visit and to learn about all of the work that's going on throughout the country to reduce cancer health disparities and how they can get involved.
For more information on Black and BRCA, please visit the Vassar Center website.